Hey guys, Luna here, and welcome back to our life. Now, we've been having a lot of interesting encounters with a lot of different stories, but let's just get right back into it, shall we? Last we left off, we did the birthday, and with one of our associates. So let's just go on the road trip now, because I think that would be fun. Sorry for that, I still have a little bit of allergies, which just makes it a little hard to speak at times. Even though you were awake, the sun had barely peeked its head above the horizon, and the sky above was still dark, though lightening by the minute. Usually you wouldn't be up so early, especially during summer vacation, but today was different. Today, instead of the lazy days you're used to, everything around you was a flurry of activity as both your family and Cove's prepared for what lay ahead. Because in the street, just outside your house, was a massive RV camper so big you couldn't even see Cove's house behind it. His parents had rented an RV for a few days to take him on a short road trip to see the Redwood National Park. You glanced over at Cove, who was standing nearby taking in the scene in front of him. The prospect of the trip had to be a mixed bag for him, but it could only be 3 days. It was only for 3 days, so it seemed he was dealing with it as best he could, especially now that you and your family were joining them. You weren't exactly sure how it exactly happened. You knew your parents and Cove spoke to each other often, and somewhere along the way plans were made for Cliff, and after Cliff offered to share the space. The parents all thought it was a fantastic idea. You had already gotten a good look inside when you were helping to unload everything in, and you had to admit that while it was a really big car, fitting that many people inside was going to be snug. So that's 7 people? Yes.
Let's go.
Yeah, I mean, granted, obviously the moms can share a bed, so it's like, it's gonna be tough. Kira and Cliff may share a bed, depending on things, so that just leaves the 3 kids. Move it or lose it, kiddos. Mom bustled past with a cool in one hand and a large bottle of water under the other. She was upbeat for this early in the morning. Ma, however, seemed to be on the other side of the wavelength. She followed behind her wife, dragging her feet on every step. She looks so comfy, though. Like, I love the costume, like, the outfit designs. I'm gonna need a whole jug of coffee once we hit the road. Yeah. You felt like you were in the middle ground between the two. Tried to keep up, and you took in some deep breaths. The air was still a little damp in the dew, but you didn't mind it. And then, at the end of the chain, came your sister. She had a bone to pick before the trip officially started. Her rattling off critiques added some level of normalcy to everything going on. Ugh. I don't get why I can't sleep in the bed tonight. Luna's the youngest, and I'll never sleep in that loft. We're trying to make things fair on everyone. If you want to play the older card, you should be offering to take the loft both nights. It's important for big siblings to make sacrifices for the younger ones. Elizabeth huffed, not happy with that answer in the slightest, and folded her arms, leaning back against the side of the RV. The trip plans had been nailed down prior, the sleeping arrangements included. Elizabeth still held on to her objections with them. There was the main area of the RV with a couch, loft, and some floor space. At the end of the car was a room with a large bed. Your moms were sharing the bed, Kira on the couch, and your father and son intended to sleep on the floor. The adults determined you and Elizabeth would sleep between the small loft above the driver's seat and sharing the bed with the moms. You thought it was unfair that Cove had to sleep on the floor. After all, it was supposed to be a trip for him and his family before yours ended up coming along too. Now he had been kicked out of every bed-like space and put on the floor. There had to be another way to organize things so it was better for him. You suggested sharing the loft with Cove. Cove and I could share the loft when I'm up there. I don't mind making room for him. Glance over at Cove. It would be fun to have a little sleepover, just the 2 of you.
No.
No, that loft is too tiny for 2 people, even if those people are teens. Last thing we need is one of you rolling off and crushing poor Cliff beneath you. We'll be taking over his driving shifts. All other parents all laughed at your mom's joke. Cove simply shrugged with a relaxed smile, and you sighed as you were forced to admit defeat. Right, you lot, does everyone have everything they need? We're heading out in 5 minutes. Now's the time to double check. You don't want to forget something that's important. Or a bathroom break. At her word, Elizabeth yelled and dashed back into the house, her bedhead hair bouncing behind her as she winced. Mom came over and gave you a smile, setting her hands on her hips. How about you, Luna? Do you have all your clothes packed, toiletries, deodorant, floss, anything else you can think of? I'm not sure about that. I feel like I'm forgetting something, but I can't remember what. Mom chuckled and gave you a squeeze on your shoulder. I feel like that on trips too, so I've learned to pack extra in case I or anyone else forgets. With the amount of supplies we stuffed in the RV, I think we'll be okay. It's only a few days after all. Thanks, Ma. With a few minutes left to spare before leaving, you mentally went over what you've packed for the trip. Clothes, pillow, blanket, usually day-to-day gear for most people. You also add more personal things, such as favorite stuffed animal. Without fail, you always made feel more comfortable whenever you went somewhere new. It felt like taking a little piece of home away from you. I got a camera. It was just a little pocket camera that you got from your mom's, but you couldn't miss the opportunity to take new snaps. Got some pencil and papers. You had prepared in case you see something to sketch at the park, or something to write down in case you needed to pass time just doodling. A couple things to read. You had packed one of your old favorites and a new one you never tried before. You knew you had plenty of time for both of them on such a long drive. Portable gaming console. A drive to the Redwood National Park would take an entire day one way, so you wanted to make sure you had a way to entertain yourself while traveling there and back. That was everything. Here, let me take that for you, Luna. I'll stow it in the RV. There's spots left it'll fit. Let Kira take your bag and gave her a grateful smile. With nothing left to do, you watched the others getting ready for your trip. Kira and Cliff seemed to have the most energy of anyone. They were finishing packing the suitcases away while your moms had gone to lock up the house. They high-fived whenever another one got crammed into the storage compartments of the vehicle. Even though your own parents were more low-key than Cove's, you could tell that they were both excited for the trip. It had been a while since your family had been taken away. I just realized I accidentally pressed the record button. It's been a while since any of your family been away anywhere together. Elizabeth skipped toward the RV, a bag slugged over her shoulder. You were surprised to see she seemed more optimistic about the whole idea now. Usually she wasn't one to exit the confines of her own room unless it was for TV or food, or to leave her family behind to be with friends. You would have thought 3 whole days packed in an RV with 6 others would be too much for her, but it was a nice surprise. You suppose any vacation was better than no vacation in her mind. Cove had been pretty quiet so far, and more than anything, seemed to be overwhelmed by the situation. You're curious about the RV. You've never stayed overnight in one before, and you wanted to know what it'd be like. Soon the miscellaneous remaining tasks had all been wrapped up. Everyone piled into the RV. Oh, I can see, yeah. Everyone piled into the RV. It was officially time for the trip to start. And it did. Cliff took the first shift driving. He cautiously navigated the massive car out of the narrow neighborhood streets. It was touch and go for the first part of the journey. Your moms and Kira were all huddled in front, trying to get a view of how much space they had on each side. There was a sense of relief when the first long leg of the trip was hit, and the RV would only need to go down one stretch of highway for miles. The mom group cleared out of the driver's area, leaving Cove's dad to it, taking more comfortable seats around the main cabin. You felt like you could finally relax now, too. Time slipped by as morning faded away. Before you realized it, the engine of the RV came to a stop, but it only halted for a few moments as Cliff climbed out of the driver's seat and Mom took over. Mom was sitting shotgun and giving Mom a quick tutorial on the consoles as if it was her first time driving anything this large. Cliff groaned as he headed toward the rest of you, stretching his arms above his head and loosening up his muscles. Making good progress. Yeah, maybe you should take a nap in the back for a while. That was a long haul you just did. I know that you're less on sleep than usual. Cliff raised his hand, the trademark grin on his slipping in place.
Nah.
I don't need sleep. Still got a few miles in the old tank. He flexed his arm, showing off his muscles to drive the point about how resilient he was home, and Kira rolled her eyes in amusement. Dad, everyone has to sleep. Cove groaned at the tough guy act, though Cliff simply chuckled and ruffled his son's hair.
So?
Are you going to be driving again anytime soon, Mr. Holden? I want to know so I can prepare. Did anyone pack some rope? I might need it. There's no seatbelts up here. Elizabeth called down from where she was, lounging in the loft above the driving compartment. She was laying on her back, her hair falling over to the side and swinging around as the RV started up again and took down the road. A bag of potato chips were balancing on Elizabeth's stomach, and she tossed a couple in her mouth right as Cliff held a hand to his chest, pretending to be offended by the remark. Kira laughed lightheartedly.
Don't worry about that.
Luckily for all of us, we have enough adults to cover the shift today. You won't be driving again until tomorrow. Just enough time to write my last will and testament. Not you, too. The rest of the group laughed while Cliff pouted. He gave him a not pathetic shrug. Mom then shouted back in her seat to join in the conversation, a playful smiling tilting her lips. What I'm more worried about is this old monster getting us there and back again before falling apart. It looks as though it was built in the early 90s. It must be older than some of its occupants. Not just the aesthetic of the decor, it's not that old, I think. Did you ask what year the model was before you rented it? Kira wrinkled her nose in the thought.
Hey!
Yes, I did. I can't remember what the answer was. Cliff chuckled at her while the rest of you let out a collective sigh. The RV lurched a little as it picked up speed, and you held onto the ladder to the loft to keep your balance. You felt something graze on the top of your head before weight settled on your brown hair. When you tilted your chin up carefully to look, you heard the rustling of a bag of chips and realized Elizabeth had rested at the end of it on your head. She gestured to the opening, silently offering to share her snack. You took a handful. Reaching up, you scooped up some chips. After that, the weight of the packet left your scalp. You happily munched away as the conversation continued on, and you got closer and closer to your destination. The day flew by, with a group of you chatting, playing games, and passing the time together before arriving at the park and setting up for the night. Mom was closing the windows while everyone was getting ready for bed, saying goodnight to the others as she made her way back to the back room. You all had dinner together while still driving, and some hours after you'd arrived at your destination, you found a parked spot for the rest of you to stay. Giving a look across the front of the RV, you noticed almost everyone there was already dozing off where they were, with Cove having completely fallen to sleep curled up in the passenger seats. He must have done so while Kira was driving the last leg. They had decided not to disturb him. Kira herself was the only one up there who was still awake, flipping through a magazine next to the portable lights from her spot on the couch. It seemed Mr. Holden needed to sleep despite his claims. You followed your moms into the back room and closed the door behind you before crawling into the bed between them. It's a queen-side bed, so there was enough space for the three of you together without too much squishing.
Good night.
Get a good rest of the night. We're going to have a big day ahead of us tomorrow.
That's fantastic.
I'm looking forward to the brush walk this morning. To the brush walk in the morning. It's been a long time since I was out in nature like this. There'll be plenty for us to see. You stayed awake for a little while longer while your moms whispered about the park and forests in general. With the sounds of the voices in the background, and eventually you nodded off to sleep. The morning ahead, you are bright up and early and preparing for the day ahead. You had an okay sleep. It's nothing compared to your bed at home, but at least you didn't have to sleep on the floor, so you couldn't complain too much. Ma whined about the firmness of the mattress, but Mom only encouraged her to sleep and to enjoy the sleep while she could. While you're looking forward to his spot get ready, you had some trouble finding a space of your own as the others were doing the same thing. Cove was perched on the top of the counter, brushing his hair and tucking up his legs every time someone wanted to move past. The parents were checking, double-checking, and triple-checking that you had everything, to the point where you had to stop listening to them altogether. You knew you wouldn't be returning to the RV at all that day, but by the looks of the backpacks that were packed up and ready to go, you doubted anything was missing from them. It didn't take much longer until we all exited the RV in a bustle and headed into the Redwood National Park. Very gorgeous.
Wow.
Cove had his head tilted up to the canopy of trees, his eyes wide as he took the massive trunks of either side of you. You knew that the redwood trees were here considering all to the tallest trees on Earth, but you weren't prepared for exactly how huge they would be in person.
Come on.
Smiley too. You spawned just in time for Kira to snap a picture of you and Cove together before she pointed her camera at Cliff, trying to get a shot despite his weak protest that she should just enjoy the moment. Parents were walking behind the group a little, with Ma telling Ma about some information she read about the park in the brochure. Ma listened happily while she looked around, taking in the sights, every now and then asking a question or making a joke about something Mom had said. You smiled at them, thinking your mom must have had read a lot of pamphlets to know so much about the park. Maybe you should come and work here as a tour guide if you know so much about the place. Elizabeth teased, earning a squeeze on the nose from your mom. She seemed to be enjoying herself, but you thought that might be just because she was amused by everyone else's reactions. You were in a good mood. The air was fresh and clean, and it was nice to be outdoors with other people you loved most. You were certain that this was the only beginning of what would be a great day. The adults had decided on some casual nature walks rather than any serious hiking, and you strolled along at your own pace, taking in the scenery. Elizabeth sped up a little, smirking at Cove as she fell into place between the two of you, and immediately you could tell by her expression she was going to say something taunting. Can't believe our families are actually on vacation together. She threw her arms out, speaking with a genuine smile of a sense of bewilderment. I would have joked about something like this happening, but now I'm not so sure I want to give them any more ideas. Cove ignored her completely and continued walking along. Just watch. Next year they'll be talking about their next new amazing idea. She put on a fake voice deeper than her own. We should just sell both of our houses and move in together. Think of how much more money we'll save on the mortgage. It was clear that Elizabeth was being sarcastic. Cove simply shook his head, not really bothered by her. You suppose he was used to it by this point. But seriously, they really do act like we're a single family just because we live across the street from each other. Elizabeth gave you and Cove a look, eyes glinting with mischief as she leered at you.
Yeah.
Maybe one day we'll be related, legally anyways. She said it as though she was a gossipy old lady. Maybe I guess you and me could get married, Elizabeth.
What?
Me? Yeah. That way Luna could be my sibling-in-law. That could be fun. Elizabeth stuck her tongue out of Cove, as if it was very idea was ridiculous. Married Cove on the same day, she'll just pop these Coves. I'll marry you, Cove. We must unite our families to increase our pull in the community. A political marriage? Might be alright with you. Then it's an agreement.
Sure.
Okay. Elizabeth poked out her tongue at the both of you, giving you a sour look. She walked ahead, obviously not getting the responses she was looking for, and you and Cove swapped amused looks. The day continued on with plenty to see and experience. You can pass a few different activities that you would have liked to try out if you had time, such as kayaking, rock climbing, but Mom said that would have waited for another trip. There was a stream during the walk that you sat beside and set up a picnic for lunch, nibbling on a selection of fruits, sandwiches, and chips. Various birds flew by overhead, and you made a game out of guessing the species that they were hanging out in the trees nearby. You even managed to get a couple of them right, including a kingfisher that grabbed half of Cliff's sandwich. You were disappointed to only have one day in the park. There was so much more here, and it felt like you needed a whole week, maybe even more, to experience it all. You sighed quietly to yourself, wondering if you get the chance to come back. group had made it back to camp just as the sun was setting in the sky, and the other stars were appearing in the sky one by one. And everyone had enjoyed different parts of it. Most. You trade stories of what you thought while you were eating dinner, then afterwards you pitched in to help clean up. You, along with Elizabeth and Cove, got to head back to the RV early and spend some time together while the parents stayed outside longer. It was nice to have the space to yourselves after the cramped journey there, and while Elizabeth had locked herself in the back room with her headphones, you and Cove were left in the main lounge area. Hang out with Cove. Well, let's take a load off. We got some time. You took a seat on the sofa while Cove settled down on the other end, tapping his finger against his knee. You know, I hardly ever see you wearing a jacket, especially in the summer.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I like wearing as few layers as possible. It's easier that way. I'd rather be cold than extra hot. It's kind of a pain to carry extra clothes around. My parents made me bring this jacket. I love wearing layers. There's something about a lot of layers that makes me feel all snug and comfortable. Cole smiled at you and nodded. I noticed. You ask him what else he likes to wear. So what kind of clothes or accessories do you like to see in somebody other than you? Cove's eyes widened at the question, and his defensive reply seemed to slip out before he had a chance to have a proper think about it. Nothing. That was funny. A snore of laughter escaped you, and even though Cove's face flushed red, you can see a hint of the smile on his lips too. Apologies about that cut. I got a phone call, but I just missed it, unfortunately. So, yeah. Snore of laughter escaped you, even though Cove's face flushed red, you could see the hint of a smile on his lips too.
Come on.
That's not what I meant. You composed yourself and sat up straighter, all traces of laughter disappearing from your face. And so with what you do mean then, isn't there anything at all you think looks good when you see it on someone? Cove muttered under his breath, and you couldn't quite catch the words. He was having a difficult time with the subject. It was a topic that made him uncomfortable, so you let it go. You don't want to push him any further, so you didn't insist. The parents all arrived soon after, each of them climbing into the RV and finding some space to sit down and rest their legs. Elizabeth, having heard the commotion, came out from the room and for the first time since arriving joined you all. Spent the evening chattering and playing a few games, enjoying the last evening of the trip together. Bedtime arrived within the blink of an eye. As the group hunkered down for the night, your mom set a finder around to make sure nothing had been left behind. She explained that Cliff was going to start driving early in the morning, like on the first day, but would be letting everyone else in the group sleep. There wouldn't be a need for all of them to get up. Now was the time to check to make sure you hadn't left anything outside. You, as well as everyone else, were confident that you had all packed it up inside the RV, which meant it was time to get some rest before the journey home tomorrow. Your moms and Elizabeth said goodnight, heading to the back room, while he climbed into the loft. Cove and his family got situated below in the previously set arrangements. You tried to get comfortable as a million thoughts were running through your mind. It was hard to believe that your trip was practically over, and before you knew it, you'd be back in your own home. You enjoyed the mini-adventure. It was short, that was for sure, but you got to see and do so much more during your time here. All in all, it was a nice break away from home. The minutes ticked by silently, and you didn't take long for the soft snores of Cliff and Kira to drift up to you. They were asleep now. You wondered if Cove was still awake, and you decided to poke your head out from the loft to find out. You blinked through the dark. Look. Looking down. Jeez, frog caught my throat. Looking down the hall, you noticed Cove laying on his back, his eyes staring straight up at the ceiling. His seafoam hair was spread out on his sleeping bag. He must have felt you watching him because his eyes suddenly locked on yours. It was difficult to see much in the dim light, but you could make out the quick smile on his face well enough. He made a silly face. Cove rolled his eyes, or at least you thought he did. You then gestured for him to come over. Cove looked unsure about it, but you were happy to see him slowly start to sit up anyways. His sleeping bag rustled as he moved. Though he tried to go slow, and froze up like a deer in the headlights every time he made a sound, watching his parents for any sign of movements. Eventually, he managed to maneuver around his sleeping dad and make it to the ladder, standing at the bottom of the rung, where he looked up at you and whispered, "What?" He invited him up into the loft. "Do you want to come up?" His eyes widened just so. You could only tell because he had come to where you were. Cove glanced behind him quickly at the sleeping parents before turning back to you. "Okay." He broke out into a grin and scooched back as far as he could, making space for Cove to crawl in. He was very tall, so it wasn't a great fit for him, but he managed to squeeze himself in. You understood how that felt, and with the two of you in the loft together, there was barely any room to move. I love the blinking animation. It's just like such a subtle way to add just a little bit of life and movement to each of the scenes. And it's just adorable and so good. And I just love how it just looks so good. You laid down next to each other on your sides face to face. He got under the blankets a bit. One of his arms were nestled under his head for comfort. The other had nowhere to go and rested alongside his chest on the floor of the loft. Cove spoke to you gently. What am I doing here?" You can see peer instead of the floor. Cove raised an eyebrow, not having expected you to bring up the topic again.
It's okay.
You're still thinking about that? You don't have to worry about me about that much, Luna, but thanks. Again, adorable. It's okay. Isn't a big deal for us to both be in the loft, right? Yeah, we always share. I like that. Usually they're also happy about it. Cove gestured in the direction of the parents, and you nodded together in agreement. They always had to try and put you and Cove together ever since you were little. I wonder how much trouble will be in it for cots. It wouldn't be nearly as much trouble as it would have been if my moms found out you snuck into my room during the night at the start of summer. He winced just imagining it. Still can't believe I did that and didn't get caught. It was a very dramatic morning. You could have easily pictured his frantic escape in your mind's eyes. Kind of a troublemaker, aren't you, Cove?
I mean...
No, I don't think so. Cove showed off, and he seemed to be in the lost in his own thoughts. Hey, do you remember that very first time I slept over at your house? You laughed, quietly and oddly, the memory coming back to the middle mind so vividly. I smiled on his face. I left in the middle of the night. I hated being in a different place back then. Now I fall asleep in your house when I'm not supposed to because I couldn't help it.
Sorry.
I'm sorry I was like that. I couldn't help take any more changes when I was little. Comforted him. Don't sweat it. I know it was hard. You smiled at Cove, and showing that it wasn't a problem. He gratefully returned with one of his. He's adorable. You spent the rest of your night smushed up in the little loft together, whispering about your past memories, trying not to giggle too loud at the silly things you had gotten up to together over the years. Eventually the chatting trailed off, and when you noticed Cove had drifted off to sleep, you followed soon after. When you woke up the next morning, it was to the rumble of the RV as it was traveling the long journey home. You noticed quickly that you weren't as warm had you been during the night, and when you checked next to you, Cove was gone. Blinking sleepily, he peeked over the edge of the loft to find where he'd gone. Maybe he had snuck back up to the spot during the night. However, you noticed him sitting on the couch talking quietly with his mom, his head hung in embarrassment. Your movement gave you away, and Kira suddenly looked up at you, caught it in your eye. She simply smiled amusedly at you, and it was obvious what happened. Cove hadn't gone away with it. They found him there in the loft, and then you woke up while he was trying to explain. You knew it was going to be a long, long time before you lived this one down if you did. Soon your moms and Elizabeth emerged from their rooms dressed and ready for the days of travel. You spent most of the day hanging out in the RV, saving the last few hours of vacation. Kira suggested a few different travel games she used to play with Cove when he was younger, and you all had a great time competing against each other. A little later in the day you tried to talk to Cove about what happened in the loft, but he simply apologized and changed the subject. It was a bit too much for him to try speaking on, especially right now. You understood. When the IV finally pulled up to your street, it was well into the night, and you were looking forward to crawling into your own bed after the last few days away. Everyone else must have been feeling the same, because it was mutually agreed that unpacking and cleaning the RV would wait until morning. Once again, you all went straight to your rooms and dropped into your bed, shoes and all. You miss being near Cove. The two of you had basically been living together for 3 days. It was nice. But you knew that it would be the last time the two of you spent time together, and that thought comforted you. Thus, with thoughts drifting through your minds, it wasn't long before you dozed off to sleep. Tomorrow, life would be on like normal. Well, with that, I hope you guys have enjoyed this, and I hope you guys have a good day, night, week, month of your lives, and may the stars forever guide your path wherever it might lead you into the future. Goodbye, everybody, and hope to see you again soon.